began as a simple but powerful idea to create a space where expressions and interpretations of the Constitution cross boundaries, language, borders, and make people come together. From a single question, a journey and our fieldwork began for this project. And our catalogues are nothing but a small footprint in a larger and ever-growing community. Today's gathering is shaped by the belief that the Constitution is not just a document, but a living identity. It is strong, rooted, and generous enough to allow for its many multiple interpretations. Through this event, we hope to open a window to that diversity that the Constitution gives to each and every one of us. We invite you to explore the Constitution not just as text, but as an experience, through questions, through interpretations, through conversations, and even through movement. As you walk away today, we hope you take with you a small piece of your very own relationship with the Constitution, something personal and something long-lasting. We are deeply grateful to the Azim Premji Foundation, as well as to everyone who shared their time and stories with us during our fieldwork for this project, some of whom are present today, and to our colleagues at Vidhi for their everlasting support, as well as to our wonderful exhibitionists who you can take a look at any point during this event, and lastly to Shriya, who's present in the audience, for her wonderful designs of the catalogue. With that, I'd like to start this event. I will just quickly give you the agenda for this event today. We're going to explain the catalogue and our process and our fieldwork in brief. We also have a panel discussion after that with our esteemed panelists who are sitting right here, and once after the panel, we will also have a small performance for you as an expression of the Constitution. I hand it over to Swapnil, who is the lead at the Constitution team at Vidhi, to take over and explain the work that they do. Thank you very much.
Very good evening to all of you. You've been welcomed so well, but particularly from folks who've come from Delhi, seeing blue skies it took me a while to get used to it, given how bad things have been back home. My name is Swapnil, and I work at the Constitutional Law Center at Vidhi, Charkha. And this event is particularly momentous because it also acts as a culmination of week-long events we've had on the Constitution Day as we celebrate 75 years of the Indian Constitution. So I thought I'd take just a minute or two to tell you what is it that Charkha does, because Charkha, along with some of our wonderful colleagues, were involved in the Constitution Companion Project, and just speak a bit about that, and then I hand over to Anshul and Jwalika to take it forward. To us at Vidhi, and a lot of us while we were in law school, what really fascinated us about the Constitution was that the Constitution begins with the word "we, the people." But when we would actually speak to the people around us, our families, our friends, these very people knew very little about the Constitution. Which is really funny because the Constitution is written for those very people, it's supposed to govern those very people, it's supposed to empower those very people. And a lot of times the response we would get is we either don't know about it and unfortunately didn't really care about it. So the Constitution literacy was really poor. Thankfully, we have people today, we have exhibitors today, we have the people who wrote wonderful responses to what is it that they know about the Constitution, which shows there is a lot of immense potential for change, and that change is happening. And we at Charkha are also trying to do that. So the mission of Charkha is that we want to take the Constitution to the people. And that doesn't just happen by talking about the Constitution, we do it through a three-pronged approach. Number one, we make sure that the Constitution is applied in a way that checks the institutions that are supposed to make sure it's running, and also point out what is reform that they can incorporate to kind of make sure that the Constitution is functional in our day-to-day functioning. The Constitution here is used for the benefit of the people that it's written for. To give you a very good example, earlier this year, my colleagues at Charkha, we came out with an exhaustive report on the 130th Constitution Amendment Bill, which is a new provision instituted and introduced in our Parliament that automatically disqualifies cabinet ministers if they're detained for a period of 30 days or more. And we've taken an exhaustive report looking at its history, looking at proposals for reform, what are the global practices, to make sure that we make a law that's more compliant, and we're in the process of speaking about it more. Number two is shaping the narrative about the Constitution. Often our response to the Constitution is when a crisis arises, we immediately start thinking, where is it that we've gone wrong? but we really have been making sure that we keep identifying those problems even before they arise. And they could be in numerous ways. We did a series last week of our Great Cases series where we spoke about the perennial problem of governors in India. We come out with a briefing book at the end of every year which identifies 25 reforms, not just at the union level, but at our different states team come out with different reforms for the particular states we are operating in, so that we can prevent those problems from arising. And third is literally taking the constitution to the people by instilling the constitution in their daily lives, by making them realize that the constitution is not an elite document just for lawyers, for judges, for politicians, but also for the people. And in that effect, there was an initiative we did last week which was very dear to all of our hearts, where we went out to the students, to children, 3rd graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, about three Delhi government schools, spoke to about 800 students to talk to them about why is it that a constitution matters and why is it that it matters to them, even though they might not really understand what is it that the constitution does. We spoke about the history of the constitution, the incredible framers that drafted that constitution, the values that the constitution hold, and how is it that it intersects with everything they do in their daily lives. And we got incredible responses. The students were very passionate, and that gave us hope that there is interest in students wanting to reclaim their constitution, which is what we're trying to do here. And we did it through anecdotes, through riddles, through enactment of a play written in Hindi because we were speaking to an Hindi audience. And we want to take this forward in the next steps going ahead. We realize that scaling this project, reaching out to more people, not just in one language, but in all languages that India speaks, different languages, Marathi, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, and we are seeing the catalogue is a good step in that direction, but that's precisely what we are trying to do. And we want to continue engaging with the people to make sure that they don't just understand the Constitution, they love the Constitution, and they also live the Constitution, which I think is a very good segue to the event we are doing here. So with that, I'll introduce my colleagues, Anshul and Jwalika, to take us through what is it that we're going to do today. And I hope you really enjoy what we've put together for you, and if there are any suggestions on what is it that we can do better, we'll be all, after this panel discussion, please come speak to us. Let's celebrate the Constitution by talking about the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Swapnil. Hi everyone, I'm Anshul Gandhi and I'm a research fellow at Charkha. As we all know that India this year has marked 75 years of adopting the Constitution. And over these course of years, it's become clearer that the Constitution is far more than a legal document. It reflects, inspires and interacts with the society beyond courts and legislatures, finding powerful expression in art, literature, theatre, cinema and poetry. These interactions vary across regions and communities, as seen in diverse works that interpret, celebrate, critique and even contest the Constitution, especially through lived experiences of people. Despite this sort of rich landscape, there is no curated resource that systematically documents this multilingual and multidisciplinary engagement with the Constitution, and this project seeks to fill that very gap by compiling library catalogues of constitutional literature across Indian languages, and we've started with 6 languages first. We began this project to trace how people across India interpret creatively and find meaning through the Constitution, especially in their everyday lives, both regionally and contextually. Between July and September, we witnessed these interactions firsthand. We engaged with approximately 300 to 350 individuals and organizations, gathering and recording diverse material that reflected how the Constitution is interpreted, narrated, performed and shared in various settings. We covered around 5 states, 1 union territory, and 4 of us kind of spanned 17 cities in this fieldwork, and we focused on 6 specific languages: Kannada, Hindi, English, Bengali, Tamil and Marathi. We've also kind of explained our methodology a bit, because I remember my colleague Mayuri was speaking to Professor Islam, who's a panelist, and she kind of introduced the project to him and told that, we are trying to catalog this in Bengali. And Professor Islam asked, oh, so how long is the project for? I'm assuming 3 to 4 years. And Mayuri was like, no, it's just 3 to 4 months. So you can understand that we had to come up with a precise methodology which kind of explains sort of how we have curated this catalog, as well as talk about the database that we have created. All of the literature that we have kind of compiled was produced, published, created or performed in the period from 2015 to 2025. A few pre-2015 materials were also included because they were kind of foundational to the regional or thematic discourse. Also just kind of a disclaimer that, a lot of people might think that we read that interesting book and I don't find it in the catalogue. My response to that would be that these catalogues are just a starting point, right? They are supposed to be illustrative rather than exhaustive, pointing to a much more larger landscape of constitutional thought that we need to kind of, figure out and find and systematically document going forward. We aim to keep expanding this resource and ensure that we kind of follow what Swapnil said, which is to kind of celebrate the constitution in a way in which it is living, it's evolving, and it's helpful to everyone here. So I'll just kind of hand it over to Jwalika to kind of show you the interesting insights, and she'll take you through the examples that we came across, something which I'm sure all of you would find interesting.
Thank you. So the primary aim of this project was not to document academic material, but actually understand how people experienced, interacted and engaged with the Constitution. So we were looking for books, plays, movies, songs, and we came across some incredible and unique forms of engagement, and I would like to highlight 3 examples here. First, in Maharashtra, we saw Kirtan and Bhajan groups reworking a very familiar devotional format. They were singing anti-caste Kirtans, gender equality bhajans, drawing on ideas of equality and dignity that sit at the heart of the Constitution. And many of them were travelling troops. They were going from town to village and not just performing this before local audiences. In Tamil Nadu, which is the 3rd image, we encountered several bands, rock bands and rap groups, and one example here is the Casteless Collective, and they didn't speak about justice or equality in general terms. They referred directly to reservation provisions, specific constitutional articles on equality, and even the specific schemes in Tamil Nadu pertaining to affirmative action. So their music was a way of constitutional literacy, but in a language that, people from all generations can connect to. The middle pictures in West Bengal, Durga Puja pandals and street installations became powerful sites of engagement. At Bagwihati in Kolkata, there was a life-sized installation, interactive installation of the Constitution and the preamble's values. People were encouraged to walk through, touch it, think about it and write down their comments at the end of the installation as well. They also had wall murals which depicted the lives of street vendors, daily wage workers and the state's response to COVID-19, highlighting specific instances in which the law directly influenced people's lives. The most important takeaway for us from all of this is that I think very often being in an academic or a research space, you think about constitutional law in a silos, and this project was very important for us to show other people, to put people in touch with each other and to sort of capture the richness of engagement that exists out there. And we believe that actually these are forms, in fact, that do much better than an academic textbook in a library, which is why we believe that it's also important that people are able to reach these and react and respond and engage with. Now I'll just take you to 3 of the common trends that we observed across all 6 states. First, subject matter orientation. So most of the work was constitution aligned. So the criteria that we had when we looked for these work was that A, they directly had to mention or engage with the text of the Constitution, or they had to be constitutional values that could be found in the fundamental rights chapter or the preamble. So that was the criteria that we used. And we saw a lot of people picking up those kinds of themes in the work that they were doing. But they were adapting it to local languages and speech and the ideas and symbols that were particularly local and contextual to that area. Second, we saw recurring themes of rights-based struggles on caste and gender across all of the states. We also saw a focus on equality and dignities on specific issues. So in some states we observed a lot of work around migrant labor. In other states we observed work around, say, domestic labor. So depending on the areas and the people we reached out to, we saw some of those things as well. Finally, we saw very innovative cultural engagement. So, some of which we've already talked about. But songs, street plays, posters, archives, all of them were being used as constitutional pedagogy. And they also raised important questions, however, about visibility and reach. Who is seeing these performances? Where are the neighborhoods they're entering? And how far can these messages travel? And one of the things that a lot of the artists and authors spoke to us about was the fact that
they had all of this material, but they found it difficult to communicate it with people beyond their certain region. And we felt that this hopefully would be a first step in at least introducing you to that literature, and we're very grateful that we have a space today to do so. I'll let Anshul conclude with what our next steps are.
Thank you so much, Dwalika. While I'm sure this is going to be a starting point, and we'll continue to kind of engage with the Constitution through these diverse methods, it's important to think about what's next, right? And I want all of you to kind of come together and kind of speak to us more, and these are kind of the steps we figured out as to what we can do going forward. I think this is not the end, right? We want to move ahead and create a publicly accessible database, and this will help our organizations, multiple partner organizations, few of them are here, to figure out specific meanings and help kind of understand the Constitution through different manners. We want to have a live database, especially so that all of you could also contribute what your findings are, what literature you've come across, and create an engaged and much more diverse curated landscape as well. Moving on, I think it's important to kind of create an anchor document for all further discussions, right? Jwalika kind of mentioned that it's important to think about the accessibility of the constitutional materials. Like, is it still kind of talking to the common people, or still are there a particular group of people who are interested in it? So we want to create an anchor document, something which is simplified, something which is accessible, and something that we will try to move ahead and ensure that everyone gets it. And I think community, and I think I see a nice community here, which is to create a constitutional community, right? We should continue to have these spaces and these programs where we come together, talk about something which is contemporary, talk something which is kind of troubling, and come together to find a solution. So I think this is specifically what we want to do next. So thank you so much for this, and I would invite all our panelists to come on the stage and help us launch the constitutional catalogs. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to our panelists and this panel on Living the Constitution, Voices, Practices and Performances. Today we explore how the Constitution moves from pages of legal text to everyday lives through language, art and culture, and you can see, you can just have a first-hand experience of that in our exhibition. We have with us today 3 panel members, 3 remarkable speakers, each approaching the Constitution from a completely different lens, but deeply complementary perspectives. Let me briefly introduce them to you. We have Mr. Abdul Rehman Pasha with us, a linguist, media educator, an author of more than 50 books, including 8 in Kannada on constitutional awareness. So he has been engaging with the Constitution in the local Indian language as well. We have Professor Maidul Islam with us, a political theorist, scholar of democracy, constitutionalism and political culture. He has fly down from Kolkata. And we have Mr. Alok Prasanna Kumar with us, co-founder of Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, writer and public commentator on law and constitutional reforms. Thank you all for joining us today. Pasha sir, I would like to begin with you. My first question would be to you. And I have heard a lot about the kind of work you have done. Navmi has been speaking about it. And you have written more than 50 books, including 8 books in Kannada. Your book, Constitution for Easier Reading, is well known. So I would like to understand what made you interested in the Constitution in the first place. And did you see any problem or confusion among people that made you want to write simple books on the Constitution? So.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಚಿಂದಿ ಅಂತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಹಂಗೆ ಸಖತ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. They have asked me to speak in English. I don't know how much I can trust my English language, but I speak from here. So as much as I can communicate to you, I will do that. So earlier I was doing workshops and writing and teaching in scientific temperament. There was a reference to a article called 51AH, and it was supposed to be a part of the Constitution. Then I was surprised. I never knew anything about the Constitution, sincerely. Then I visited the Constitution, and it was so beautifully etched in a particular place in the part number 3, fundamental duties, 51A is supposed to be, you are supposed to inculcate or teach or practice scientific temper. That is my favorite subject. Then I got interested in, I am very good in writing books and conducting workshops in my language, that is Kannada. I found it is very, very comfortable. So I started conducting workshop in Kannada language. I have conducted more than 150 workshops from the level of waste picker women to assistant and associate professors of the Karnataka government, these things. But I found the response to be almost similar when I talked to them about, do you know Constitution, what makes the Constitution meaningful to you and all that, but only the language and expression and the techniques has to be different from these people to there. I use videos, I'm a person from theatre and all that. I do a lot of nakras also in communicating Constitution. Yes.
Thank you. Professor Islam, I'll come to you because you come from an academia background and you have regularly commented on public issues. How do you see the space for constitutional dialogue evolving in India? And I think you are best placed to be speaking about that. And I would also like to understand that what do you think is the constitution becoming more present or more absent in everyday political discourse? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. That's a really lovely question. First, is this a difficulty in terms of communicating the Constitution, given the fact that there is a certain technical legal language which made the task of Pasha great in terms of making the Constitution easier to communicate to the very layman. Now, I guess the Constitution's another challenge is that it's not like a religious text like the Quran or the Gita or the Bible, which is in a way kind of enmeshed into your everyday life practices, that in the morning you just woke up and then read that without even understanding that. I quite kind of sometimes surprised to see that people who doesn't know Arabic, they just read Quran and they just don't know what they are reading. Similarly, Sanskritic text of Gita or so I guess, but they still do as a part of the ritualistic practice, whereas Constitution is a secular document, where certain kind of a political agency has to play an important role to communicate that. Now, where does that agency comes? Of course, the state is one, but then apart from the state, you have civil society institutions, schools, the curriculum, the syllabus, I think that comes to the picture. No, so in a way, it's a difficult task and a challenge to keep the dialogue going on the Constitution. But at the same time, I also feel quite optimistic, given the fact that the last 10 years, the 2015 to 2025 that your project is involved in. If you look at the last 10 years, then it started with one could say, a huge assault on the Constitution. So it started with mob lynching, it started with cow vigilantism, then 2016 you have demonetization, and then you had this whole entire JNU gang was kind of almost attacked, and then you have all sort of legislations coming up. And after 2019, you have Ram Janmabhoomi verdict, then the Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bill, and now you have SIR. Now one could say, but one could allege that these are all constitutional assaults in some form or the other. The right to freedom of life, the right to freedom of expression and speech, those things are there. It is another matter that the Supreme Court has a very different take on some of these matters. But I'm saying that because these attacks were there, or at least there's some kind of assault was there, that a rejuvenated dialogue of Constitution is now in the public discourse. A lot of people are not talking about Constitution. What are the exact provisions? People are filing PILs. Supreme Court is hearing these cases, and it is all around the Constitution. So I guess the moment of crisis of Constitution is also the moment of its evolving dialogue, and a very animated dialogue. And I think that's the presence and absence which I will sum up here. Thank you.
Thank you for this very important point. Alok, I'll come to you. So you are a lawyer, you come from the policy space, and I have had the opportunity to interact with you at many occasions. And I know you are somebody who sincerely advocate that the constitution should be made simpler. I would like to understand that being an advocate, being a lawyer, what do you think? Why do you think it should be so? Why do you think that the constitution should be engaged with people who do not belong to the who are not the specialists, and how do we do that? What are your thoughts on that?
So let's go back to the point that I think Anshul made. Constitution starts with the word, "We the people of India." It's our constitution, right? We should know something that belongs to us well. It's a different matter. There may be experts who will go in depth into some issues, in some relevance, in some aspects. But at the core of it, this is a document that belongs to us. That was drafted by extraordinary ordinary people. If I have to use that term, it sounds contradictory, but people from all walks of life were involved in drafting the constitution. It was not just the members of the Constituent Assembly or the drafting committee. If you read the history of how the constitution was drafted, there's a new book that I'm waiting to read. You will see that ordinary people sent in postcards, letters, representations, detailed draft constitutions that they had come up with to the Constituent Assembly saying, we want to be part of this. Some of it was taken into account, a lot of it probably was not. But what it tells us is, from the start, this was a document that we the people of India wanted. More importantly, we are past that age of ideology. We no longer compete to say my ideology is better than yours. Because we realized that when one ideology wins, there's no space for the quote-unquote loser. But you and I can disagree on the constitution. Tomorrow you'll come back and give me a better reason why your interpretation is right. Tomorrow, after that, I will find a new way to think of the constitution. The Constitution of India has been amended more times than I can count. Even though they say 103rd, 4th Amendment Bill, the number of changes is actually a lot. But at its core, the basic ideas, the basic principles, the things we can all agree on, that is what remains steadfast. And it allows space for differences, disagreements, diversity. So, to that extent, we are doing the constitution a disservice if we keep it only in the courtrooms, if we keep it only in parliament, if we keep it only in law colleges. We need to keep it in our public spaces. It needs to inform our public dialogue. And that way, you tend to build a much more stable, secure, prosperous nation.
Thank you, Alok. Pasha sir, I'll come back to you, and you only mentioned how you have interacted with a diverse set of people, different people from waste pickers to women. I would like to understand from you that, do you think that these different people, they engage with the constitution differently? And how do people from marginalized sections, such as you mentioned waste pickers, how do you explain the constitution to them? What is the methodology that you follow?
To be frank, I work with waste pickers women. Their perspective about the constitution, they do not know what constitution is. We have to make them understand whatever they are demanding for, their rights and all that, for rights for equality, inclusion in the government setups and all that. When I say that this is as very much there in the constitution, in a book that we call that constitution, look here, this is the constitution book. This all the educated say this is the constitution and all that. Do you know that this is written like that? They get thrilled that something that they are asking for is already written in a book like that. I give it to them. They don't know. They are illiterates. But why don't you touch it? it's your own constitution. I make them go take around and all that. But I'm sorry, I worked after that only with educated students and teachers, school teachers and professors and all that. Basic perspective about the constitution is that they do not know more about that than saying that our constitution given by so and so, So uske baad kya hai? They don't know. I don't know if you are asking the next question, but I would like to go ahead saying that my understanding of the constitution is I'm not a liar, I'm not an expert of anything, but I have started living the constitution in a right way. In my own family, we live the constitution. For example, my wife sits there, she is from other caste. I have 3 children. I don't know whose caste they come from. We have about 6-7 different castes, 6-7 different languages. But we have no problem. We are living very happily because we are following the constitutional values. You go to my place, you will see a huge poster stuck in the elevation of my house. And you can see this one. In different formats, we are thinking that this preamble to be the symbol of the constitution itself. I cannot give the constitution to everybody, but this I can give. So we believe that wherever this is stuck, so that place gets the constitution dignity, whether it's an official place or a house. This kind of posters in A3 size, we have this, myself and my Shishya Koti, my Shagids, have distributed more than 10,000 such posters to different class of people, requesting them to place there in a prominent place. So this keeps us reminding about our own values, our own responsibilities for the country and to our own self. So this is a symbol of constitution. This is what I am. Thank you so much.
So I'll also take this opportunity to tell you all that Pasha sir has transformed his home into a mini Constitution Museum. So now he has been telling this to me, that you walk into his home and you'll find so many things related to the Constitution, all displayed in the wall. So it's like a mini museum for the Constitution. I'll come back to you, Professor Islam, and I have done the field work for West Bengal in Bangla. And one thing that I noticed is the fact that Bengal went through partition. And this is especially from North Bengal. I went to Siliguri, Kuch Bihar and all these adjacent regions. And I saw how strongly people carry memories of partition, political movements and cultural change. How still plays, artifacts that are being developed, they still revolve around the partition and the history of partition. So how does this layered history shape the way people in Bengal relate to the Constitution today? Have you also come across such things in your research as an academic?
Very much, because all the regions of India, very different regions of India, have very different history, because it has a very different encounters with the colonial modernity that inherited by the very commoners. So someone who was completely a non-voter in 1945 and 1946, then suddenly after 4-5 years in the first general elections 1951-52, that person becomes a voter or elector because we adopted the universal adult suffrage. In Bengal, where the land system is very different, and someone who was there in a Mahanwari system or a Rayatwari system have a very different peasant existence. But these peasants itself became voters later, right? Universal adult suffrage. And the major political parties were actually have had this kind of substantial support base from the peasants, although most of the leaders came from urban educated elite. A lot of lawyers were there. In Bengal case, the partition was a very significant case. Suppose like someone like Ritik Khattak, who is a famous Bengali director, he never quite resolved this whole partition issue. And throughout his films, right, still the Juti Tokko Goppo in the 1974 that was released, he absolutely questions this freedom. He says, Shadhinata, what Shadhinata, what kind? And this came from another story. In Bengal, you have opposite of the Congress, so the communists were very strong. And by 1947, the communists were actually opposing the very celebration of Independence Day as a protest against partition. And then you get the B.T. Ranadive line which says that, this independence is a sham, ye azadi chota hai, and that line was still there till 1950. And then by 51, 23rd October, there was a press conference where the Soviet Union party actually intervened and then persuaded the Communist Party leadership that you adopt the constitution and participate in the elections. And the Communist Party actually participated in the 50 or 52 elections to emerge as the prime opposition party in the parliament. Now, of course, that's a long story, and the partition story is somehow an interesting thing, particularly for the East Bengal refugees. So the East Bengal refugees, the constitution is a symbol of a bifurcated state, a symbol of some kind of struggle that they had. They had to actually came to a different alien land, something, yeah. But at the same time, it is within the section of refugees, some of them were also optimistic with the constitution. They got rights, and then, there was a lot of struggle for the refugee settlements and all, which actually constitutional provisions gave certain kind of rights, but that had to be implemented, those struggles were there. So it's kind of a mixed story. There is a suspicion towards the constitution in Bengal, but at the same time there's also an optimism. So that's kind of a very interesting kind of a character that is emerging in Bengal. So vis-a-vis is very love and hate relationship with constitution.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There's one other theme that we found across all these states that we went to, we conducted our field work. We found a vibrant Dalit and caste-based literature in Bengal, in Bihar, in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, all these states. And when we interacted with these authors, these writers, most of them told us that even when their themes reflect constitutional values like dignity, liberty, equality, justice, all these, they never consciously grounded their writing in the constitution. So Alok, my question is to you, and how do you understand this gap between lived constitutional issues and the distance from the constitution in literature? And then I'll come back to Professor Islam and I'll like your response on the same question as well.
I don't see it as a distance, more so because I think in some ways we expect people to have a very fine-tuned understanding of the exact text and provisions of the constitution. When someone says, actually I'll tell you my particular experience of how, in the exact context of the questions that you had, that I understood how people actually engage with the constitution. I was in Mysore 12-13 years ago. I think I was there for a friend or a colleague's wedding, and early morning wedding ritual starts, so we had to go by bus to the venue. And Mysore, unlike Bangalore, is not heavily crowded, not full of traffic, so you can actually sit and see the sights going past you. On the walls of Mysore University, somebody had written out, reservations are for parity, not for charity. I said, I've read this somewhere. Where have I read this? And then I realized it's a direct quote from Justice Chinnappa Reddy's judgment in K.C. Vasant Kumar versus State of Karnataka, 1986-87 judgment. Nobody is citing Justice Chinnappa Reddy there. Nobody is saying Supreme Court held to, or nobody said Supreme Court is saying this. But that powerful idea articulated in that judgment, and you should read that entire paragraph. This particular line resonated very well. And I'm sure this is Dalit movement, this is the strong Dalit students organization and so on. This is engagement with the constitution. The engagement of the constitution is not the judgments that we read, but it's what written on the walls of the outside the Mysore University. So to me, the actual text doesn't matter as much as the concepts. Do people get that reservation is for parity, not for charity? Do people get that dignity is a fundamental right of every person? It doesn't matter if they know whether there's an Article 21 or a 14 or a 15 or a 16, it doesn't matter. To me, the fact that these fundamental ideas, and these are ideas from the Constitution, right? Of course, certain ideologies have taken them up in different ways and re-articulated them in slightly different ways. But the core of this, if people are able to say it in this particular way, because at the heart of the day, end of the day, what does the constitution regulate? It is not regulating relationships between individuals. It's regulating our relationship with the state. It is telling us this state is supposed to work for us. This government is supposed to work for us. What should the government do for us? Right? Those of you who watched the movie Jawan will know, like one question that Shah Rukh Khan expects us to ask before we cast our vote. In a way, that's what people take from the constitution. And I think in that way, the values, as long as those values are understood, as long as those values, as Pasha sir said, are lived, to me the actual text, whether they refer to the specifics, does not matter so much. The text is a powerful symbol, the text is a legal document, all of which is true. But let's not forget the constitution at its core is a collection of values, and that's the most important.
Professor Islam, your thoughts on this as well?
So yeah, I quite agree with Prasanna that it's the constitutional values which are supreme here. And of course, this is very much also happening in Bengal. Bengal is a state where you have a very high degree of voter participation. I think right to vote is something which is really a kind of a marvelous right. And Bengal is a state where higher voter turnouts, like 79-80% is one of the higher voter turnouts of the states that's there. And particularly during the elections, you have this everyday kind of adda sessions in the coffee shops, the tea shop. Actually, anyway, like 24/7 Bengal is known for that. It's tea shop, coffee shop, addas. But particularly during the elections and the month before the elections, when the elections are formally announced, so the wall writing, the graffitis, and the issues, and the jokes and the puns, that actually animates this entire political milieu. The political culture of Bengal is in a way very different, very lively, where a lot of constitutional values are being, threadbare discussed and analyzed.
Yeah. Just one point on that, and this is for Pasha sir's consideration. The one place in Bangalore at least, which comes close to the addas of West Bengal, are probably the Dashinis, right? Where there's one close to my house where the lady who sweeps the street sits with the lawyer who's about to go to court, sits with the police officer, sits with the person who's just finished housework and coming there for a quick snack. One place where I genuinely see a big cross section of society. Can we turn that into a place for constitutional discussion?
Yeah, those are the kind of places where on their own they discuss. I have heard people talking in the parks and all that. They want certain values to be there in our society, and they bring it from different sources. Aisa hona chahiye, aisa hona chahiye, aisa hona chahiye. When they found out that all those values are already promised in the constitution here or there, they are surprised. Is it so? So earlier, like you said, because I am not a very great expert of articles and all that, I only look at the values. That's why I always keep the preamble as the headbagil. What is that headbagil means? Threshold. Preamble is the threshold or the gateway to the study of constitution. I always tell my people to study the preamble, and first, second, third and fourth part. That's enough for us. When we say that all those values we are drawing from different sources, from religion to whatever, are already defined for a human being in the constitution in one article or the other. This fascinates the common people. I catch up on that, like you said. That's how I can communicate. That's how I am good in doing that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. This is the last question that I'll pose to the panel, and I'll want all three of you to respond to this. So, for educators, for activists and institutions like us, for people like us who are seeking to make the Constitution accessible to people, what do you suggest? How do we do that? What are the easier ways to do that? From your experiences on the field, for your interaction with the people, what are your suggestions? And I'd like all three of you to respond to that. Alok, if you can start.
Sure. I'm probably the least qualified to answer this because my interaction with people understanding the constitution actually comes from my Deccan Herald column. So Deccan Herald, I was writing till earlier this year monthly column on how our constitution was framed and how it came into existence, and Raghutam is here. He was my editor who gave me that opportunity for 5 years. Initially, when I used to share it with my members in my family, they would be like, "It's nice to see your face and your name, but we don't understand anything that you're writing." So I was like, okay. And I made a conscious effort after that. I sort of tried, okay, let me try and simplify it. And I think the most touching story I heard from my own family is one of my uncles. Every Sunday when my column came out, his father-in-law, who wasn't able to read anymore, text is too small. So he would call him up and say, "Alok's article has come out, what has he said I want to do?" So my uncle would read out line by line. So to me that is success. I don't know, I don't want them to know every single article. If that one article sparks some interest, some thought to say, I hadn't thought of this before, I hadn't understood this before. I think for me it was a journey of thinking of how do I make that uncle who's not a lawyer, not involved in government, not somebody who regularly reads newspapers and is involved in everything, get curious about this, to want to say, what is he writing about, what is he talking about? If I start from that point, I think those of us who write for public newspapers, for the public and so on, if we start from there, I think we will reach a much wider audience. It looks nice for us to get our publication in newspapers, but we need the ordinary person of this country to read over their morning cup of coffee in a darshini while having breakfast and say, "Oh, this is interesting, I hadn't thought about it." So I think that is what we need to inculcate. Speaking for myself, that idea that you are not writing for an audience of people like you, you are writing for the person most unlike you.
So if I would like to share the experience like he did, I have been writing articles, I have been writing columns to 3 different magazines in Kannada. One is Teacher, that is the name of the magazine, which reaches the teaching community. So every month I write, there is a column called Pashankana, named after me only. I would have written at least about 100 articles for this magazine. Out of them, 80 should have been somehow or other connected with the Constitution. And I am a sub-editor to another very famous magazine called Vasatu. Whenever they ask me to write something, you have to write, after a long time you have to contribute some article. That article will be somehow or some angle to the Constitution. Okay. So my friends always joke me, give Pasha anything. Even how do you prepare chapati? He would somehow see that it ends with Constitution. Okay, and about this preamble, these things. If I go to any marriage function or a birthday or a housewarming ceremony, my wife and I will carry a photograph of this and a book, and we give it to as a presentation to them. They would surprise. What is this, Mr. Pasha? Coffee hai? I got a chance. I start talking to them about what this is and all that. So there's a chance. And incidentally, sir, I work with the teachers, school teachers. There is a lesson in 9th standard social science about Constitution and the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly and all that. And when I come to know, I start studying those 2 lessons. I was surprised to see, even after so much of my relation with the teaching of Constitution, I could not really appreciate those lessons. They are written in so prosaic way, like all the textbooks do, and children would not really appreciate that. Why children? Even the teachers will not understand that. When I conducted the Constitution values or literacy, some name I give, a nice name, when I conducted the workshop to the school teachers, my dear sir, they just sit like this. At the end of the day, they say, is it like that? Is this the constitution? So that would be how I understand the perception of the teachers. Then they will command. They say, go to the 9th standard social science studies, you will teach it better. And finally, I would like to say, when I take the constitution books and I show it to the people who has written this. If I give my book, you would say, look at this, Mr. Pasha has written this. Okay, what about the constitution? Look around. There is nobody's name either here or there in the constitution. Then I go to the first page. Then I find this phrase, we the people of India. And it ends with, we have accepted it ourselves. So which means we the people of India has written this. And I show some images where the elders are signing the constitution and all that. There is a person sitting in the darkness, standing there. I would say, do you recognize that person in some dark place there? They would say, no sir, I don't. That's me, me standing there too. And half of them say, huh? Half of them say, How can you be, sir? So means that is the way I feel that I am one of the parts of the people of India who has written that. It is my constitution, not our constitution, my constitution. Finally, sir, in our workshops, after we have raised this appreciation for the constitution and all that, we place the constitution preamble in the middle, blank pages this side and this side, we the people of India and Bharata Janatyada Navu, everyone has to sign there. By way of signing there, they feel that they are part of that, then they would say it is my constitution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pasha, sir. That was really interesting. Before I move on to Professor Islam, I would just like to mention that we'll open the floor for a couple of questions from the audience. All our exhibition partners are also here. If you would like to ask a few questions to our panel, please be prepared. So we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so thank you. So I will go with Prasanna. I think what we need is a verticalization of the Indian Constitution, the kind of project that you are doing. I was quite surprised to see that in Bengal we don't find a good Bengali translation of the Indian Constitution so easily. I mean, if you order on Amazon, you can have, of course, a Hindi translation which is as old as the Constituent Assembly. But I'm saying that Bengali translation, I don't know what about Kannada or Tamil translation. With the new education policy, I think at least a 2-credit course of the Constitution must be compulsory for all higher education institutions. I had this opportunity to teach the Constitution of India course in an engineering college, National Institute of Technology in Durgapur, for 2 years. It's quite interesting that this course was there, the Civics for Engineers, that was the course originally in the 1960s and 70s, and certainly from the emergency days it stopped. And it only got revived in the post-pandemic era when a director thought that we should actually teach Constitution to the engineers. And I had to sell that course by suggesting that you need to understand the legal language, because how about a multinational company to hire you with a very wrong contract? You have been duped because you don't know the legal language. So the Constitution is a good starting point. It was a very full house course. And after 2 years, the director retired and the course was gone. So a new director came and said, "Kya hoga Constitution pad ke?" So I guess medics, doctors, these are people who must understand Constitution well. And of course, I completely agree with Prof. Pasha here that it needs to be told and retold in a very easy language, accessible language. Textbooks must be written in that language. And I think also the civil society initiatives, some of the things that you said in the bhajan with the gender equality and that kind of initiative is really good, because that is part and parcel of your everyday culture already. What about, putting the Constitution in, the Constitution values in your larger ritual that you do? So it was great to talk to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We now open the floor to the audience. In case you have any questions, please, you can raise your hand, just tell your name and ask the question to the panelists you would like to.
my name is Priyamada. I also work at Vidhi. Thank you so much for this very engaging discussion. There's just one question that I thought I would like to ask all three of you, because and I'm aware that the question may not be, directly, it may be a little political, but what I want to ask, especially since I think it's an interesting aspect that most of the states that this project has focused on have been states with specific histories and are currently opposition ruled states. And one thing that Mayuri had also pointed out earlier is that a lot of the discussion about the constitution is about rights, about fundamental rights, and part 3, and rightly so. So when we have people discussing it, talking about the kind of rights that they are entitled to, etc., that's what we usually think of when we say engaging with the constitution. But I'm also wondering if in recent years, would you say that there is also a tendency to look beyond part 3 and to also look at other provisions of the constitution when it comes to federalism, when it comes to state rights? So as an example of this, I'm from Chennai, and I've noticed that in the roads near my house, which are currently located near the TDK headquarters, a new political party in Tamil Nadu. So there's a lot of banners now, against the SIR, and they talk about how the constitution is the reason for why we should be demanding better state rights and against the center and all of that. So I want to understand how we can, this new way of engaging with the constitution beyond just rights, fundamental rights, and how exactly would that play out?
I mean, we have two very good examples in recent history. In Jharkhand, in 2017-18, when there was a move to pass laws which might weaken the rights of Adivasis in the state, people carved provisions of not Article 19, but the 5th schedule of the Constitution. Law schools don't teach us the 5th schedule. We barely realize it exists. But in Jharkhand, in rural, remote Jharkhand, people were being told this is our guarantee in the constitution contained in the 5th schedule. And they used the most traditional Adivasi way of doing this. Here in Karnataka, we have a tradition of Veeragallu, which is hero stones, to commemorate people who have done something. There they commemorate ancestors using Pathal. This was called the Pathal Gadi movement, where they carved provisions of the 5th schedule and sent it from village to village to make people aware this is what you are losing. More recently, we have Ladakh's demands on the 6th schedule. Again, part of the constitution most people don't know exists. But I'm pretty sure if you stop the average person in Ladakh and ask them, what is the 6th schedule and why are you asking for it, they'll give you a better answer than most of us lawyers can give. So, let us not assume that conversation ends with rights. I'm pretty sure you will find the deeper we dig, and that is why I see this as just the start, right? This is just our first dip of the toe into an enormous ocean of material of how people have engaged. Right? Maybe if this culminates in a museum, one day we'll have a Pathal Gadi stone also as part of a Constitution Museum. Maybe if you go to rural Mandya in Karnataka, people might know more about how water tribunals, interstate river water tribunals work than you and I can ever imagine. When you go to Nagaland, people will know about Article 371A more than you and I can ever imagine. So I think what we really need to do is to pick these disparate threads and connect them. That maybe tell people in Ladakh that here is a model which worked for the people of Jharkhand, of how they were able to protect their land and using the constitution in a particular way. Maybe Ladakh's struggle is also inspired by the fact that the 6th schedule was introduced for northeast regions. Ladakh was never in the mind of our constitution framers, but they have taken something which was applicable to the northeast and said we want this. So I think the deeper we go, the more we realize that people across this country have engaged with parts of the constitution in so many ways that even today in this hall we have not been able to imagine. That the first most obvious thing that has emerged is the discourse on rights, but I think there is an ocean of information, an ocean of material out there.
My answer is very simple. So when I teach constitution literacy to different groups, I go to the fourth part first and then come back to part 3. And it works convenient for me because I have been leading a movement in Karnataka on scientific temper also. I borrow it from the constitution, 51A. One of the H is the scientific temper. And when we visit all the A to K, latest is K, there's a lot of learning as to how can we be the responsible citizen before we ask for the rights. So if you are responsible and if you are looking at the duties, then you have a power to ask for the rights. Then we go to the rights. I'm very simple in my instruction, or how do I say, training and all that. Sir.
Oh, thank you very much. You must ask a political question. It's a political discussion, and we are talking about a political document. So yes, so as far as the federalism issue is concerned, it's quite interesting that both Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, the two states which are far away from Delhi, also are the states which talk more about federalism. In the 1980s, the Tamil Nadu regime at that time and the left regime in Bengal, they were kind of, in a way, foregrounding federalism as a center state. They want to reorganize the entire center state financial relations particularly. And the Trinamool today and the current regime in the DMK regime in Tamil Nadu also had a kind of an adjustment in regards to federalism. So the SIR issue, the Tamil Nadu actually moved to the Supreme Court, the Trinamool supported it, and on a number of issues there. It's quite also interesting that these two states are states where you don't have a big national party like the Congress or the BJP ever come to power in the last 50-60 years. So if the Tamil Nadu was the last, was 67, after 67 no Congress, no BJP. In Bengal, almost if you 72 election, Bengal was an exception because it was a hugely rigged election. It was almost a semi-emergency before the actual emergency came. So nobody takes 72 elections seriously. But if you just minus the 72 elections, it's the same thing. The Congress and the BJP has never come to power. So the party systems are very interesting, and it's also interesting that in Bengal now you have a interesting story of linguistic nationalism, where Bengali subnationalism is emerging. Very much similar to the Tamil nationalism, subnationalism that was already there for decades back. Now, so I guess the rights are important, but at the same time you need this parallel kind of political movements that constitutional values, around constitutional values, and need to act as a pressure group on the government and on the courts. The PILs are also very important. Look at in the SIR case, this whole interesting kind of duality between the proof of citizenship versus proof of identity that comes up. So where this Aadhaar is now taken care of as a 12th document, although it's only a proof of identity. So I guess these debates and conversations will go on, and I think it's a long way to long hurdles and long struggles ahead. Civil society initiatives are important to actually take care that our constitutional values are protected. Thank you.
Let's this be not the end of this conversation, but the beginning of many more such conversations and a much larger community committed to keeping the Constitution alive every day in every space. We now invite you all to enjoy a dance performance by Sahachaari Dance Group and the exhibition that continues the spirit of this discussion. Thank you so much.
ಜಾತ್ಯತೀತ ಪ್ರಜಾಸತ್ತಾತ್ಮಕ ಗಣತಂತ್ರವಾಗಿ ವಿಧಿಯುಕ್ತವಾಗಿ ಸ್ಥಾಪಿಸಿ ವಿಚಾರ ಅಭಿವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಧರ್ಮಶ್ರದ್ಧೆ ಮತ್ತು ಉಪಾಸನ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಸುನಿಶ್ಚಿತಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಬಂಧುತ್ವ ಭಾವನೆಯನ್ನು ವೃದ್ಧಿಗೊಳಿಸಲು ಶ್ರದ್ಧಾಪೂರ್ವಕ ಸಂಕಲ್ಪ ಮಾಡಿದವರಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ರಚನಾ ಸಭೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂವಿಧಾನವನ್ನು ಅಂಗೀಕರಿಸಿ ಅಧಿನಿಯಮಿಸಿ ನಮಗೆ ನಾವೇ ಅರ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿಹೆವು. ಅರ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿಹೆವು.
ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲುಬಿನ ಹಂದರದೊಳಗೊಂದು. This poem by Moorana Kodu Chinnaswamy celebrates India's religious diversity and the inner sanctum within each person where various deities coexist. The poems make us realize that our country's diversity is not a hindrance but a strength. Within us lies the power to transcend this darkness of ignorance that leads to meaningless violence. Music composition by Dr. Manon Mani. ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲುಬಿ
ಮಂದಿರವಿದೆ ಮಂದಿರವಿದೆ ಉಚ್ಛ್ವಾಸ ನಿಶ್ವಾಸಗಳ ಓಂಕಾರವಿದೆ ಉಚ್ಛ್ವಾಸ ನಿಶ್ವಾಸಗಳ ಓಂಕಾರವಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾನೆ ರಾಮ ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಈಶ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೀತೆ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗೌರಿ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲುಬಿನ ಹಂದರದೊಳಗೊಂದು ಮಸೀದಿ ಇದೆ ಮಸೀದಿ ಇದೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಟ ನಕ್ಷತ್ರ ಕಣ್ಣಲಗೆ ಚಂದಿರ ಹಾಗೂ ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಟ ನಕ್ಷತ್ರ ಕಣ್ಣಲಗೆ ಚಂದಿರ ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲುಬಿನ ಹಂದರದೊಳಗೊಂದು ಹಿಗರ್ಜಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಕಶೀರು ಹೆಗಲ ಮೂಳೆಗಳಿಂದಾದ ಶಿಲುಬೆ 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 ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾನೆ ನಮಗಾಗಿ ಕೊಳೆ ಜಯಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ನಿತ್ಯ ಮರುಗುವನೇ ಸುಕ್ರಿಸ್ತ ಕ್ರಿಸ್ತ 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 ಮಸ್ತಿಷ್ಕದೊಳಗೆ ಸ್ತೂಪಗಳು ಮಸ್ತಿಷ್ಕದೊಳಗೆ ಸ್ತೂಪಗಳು ಅಸ್ಥಿಯೊಳಗದೆಷ್ಟು ಬಸ್ತಿಗಳು ಅಸ್ಥಿಯೊಳಗದೆಷ್ಟು ಬಸ್ತಿಗಳು ಸದಾ ಸ್ವಸ್ಥವಾಗಿರುವ ಬುದ್ಧನಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಮಹಾವೀರನಿದ್ದಾನೆ ರಕ್ತ ಮಾಂಸದ ದೇಹಗಳುರುಳಿದವು, ರಕ್ತ ಮಾಂಸದ ದೇಹಗಳುರುಳಿದವು, ರಕ್ತ ಮಾಂಸದ ರಕ್ತ ಮಾಂಸದ ದೇಹಗಳುರುಳಿದವು, ದೇಗುಲಗಳುಳಿದಿವೆ. ರಕ್ತ ಮಾಂಸದ ದೇಹಗಳುರುಳಿದವು, ದೇಗುಲಗಳುಳಿದಿವೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲುಬಿನ ಹಂದರದೊಳಗೆ ಬೆಚ್ಚನೆಯ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಪಂಜರದೊಳಗೆ, ಬೆಚ್ಚನೆಯ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಪಂಜರದೊಳಗೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೇವ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೇವಿ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಕ್ಕ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಮಹಾದೇವಿ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಣ್ಣ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಬಸವಣ್ಣ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಮ್ಮ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಮ್ಮ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರಿ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇರಿ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಕಬೀರ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಕನಕದಾಸನಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಅಜಾನುಬಾಹು ಅರವಿಂದನಯನ ಕೌಸಲ್ಯಾಸುತನನು ದೃಢಕಾಯನು ಧೀರನು ಆದ ಅವನನುಜ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಣನ ಕಂಡು ಶೂರ್ಪನಖೆಯು ನೋಡಿದಳು ಅದ್ಭುತದಿಂದ. ತರುವರೆ ತಿರಸ್ಕರಿಸುವರೆ ಎಂದು ಅಲೆ ಅಲೆಯಾಗಿ ಮೂಡಿದವು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ಭಯವಾಗಿ. ಅವರಂತೆ ತಾನ್ವೇಷವಂ ಧರಿಸಿ ತನ್ನ ಮೊಗವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿತಳದ ಕೋಣದಲ್ಲಿ ವೀಕ್ಷಿಸಿ ಶೂರ್ಪನಖಿಯು ನಾನಲ್ಲ ಚಂದ್ರನಖಿಯು ತಾನೆಂದು ನಕಳ ಅತಿಶಯದಿ ಹಾಸ್ಯದಿಂದ ಶಿರವೆತ್ತಿ ವೀರಳಾಗಿ ನಡೆದು ರಾಮನಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಡಿದಳು ತನ್ನ ಆಂತರ್ಯವ ನಾಚದೆ ಅಂಜಿಕೆಯಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಎಂದು
ಯಂತ್ರಗಳ ವೇಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹಿಂದುಳಿಯುತ್ತಿದೆ. ಯಂತ್ರಗಳ ವೇಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹಿಂದುಳಿಯುತ್ತಿದೆ. ಬುದ್ಧಿಯ ಆಡಂಬರಕ್ಕೆ ಭಾವ ಬಲಿಯಾಗುತ್ತಿದೆ. ಭಾವ ಬಲಿಯಾಗುತ್ತಿದೆ.
ಬಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ ಮಾಡಿಟ್ಟ ನಿಯಮ ಪರಹಿಂಸಿಸಲಲ್ಲ ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ಜನ್ಮ. ದಯೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೂಲ ಧರ್ಮ, ದಯೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೂಲ ಧರ್ಮ, ದಯೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೂಲ ಧರ್ಮ. ಅದು ನೋಡಿ ಎತ್ತರಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಳೆದು ನಮ್ಮ ಸುಖ ಮಲಿನವಾಗಿದೆ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಸ್ವಾರ್ಥದ ಸೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದರ ಫಲವೇ ಈ ನರಳಾಟ ಅದರ ಫಲವೇ ಈ ರಕ್ತಪಾತ ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದ ದಯೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೂಲ ಧರ್ಮ ದಯೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೂಲ ಧರ್ಮ ದಯೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೂಲ ಧರ್ಮ ಮನರಳಬೇಕು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರು ಗೆಲುವು ಸಾಧಿಸಿದಾಗ ಹೆಗಲಾಗಬೇಕು ಮತ್ತೊಬ್ಬರು ಸೋತು ಕೂತಾಗ ಕಂಬನಿಗೆ ಕೈಯಾಗಿ ಆಯಾಸಕ ಸರೆಯಾಗಿ ದಣಿದವರಿಗೆ ಹನಿ ನೀರಿತ್ತರೆ ಅದೇ ಸಾರ್ಥಕ ಜನ್ಮ
ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರ ಆಡುವುದು ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಡ. ಮತ್ತಾರನ್ನು ಗೆಲ್ಲುವುದು ಬೇಡ. ಆಡುವುದು ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಡ, ಗೆಲ್ಲುವುದು ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಡ. ನಮ್ಮ ದರವನ್ನು ಮಾರಿ ಇನ್ನು ದಾಸರಾಗುವುದು ಬೇಡ. ಸರ್ವಾಧಿಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ತೆತ್ತುಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದು ಬೇಡ. ತೆತ್ತುಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದು ಬೇಡ. ತೆತ್ತುಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದು ಬೇಡ.
Thank you very much once again. Just before we head on to the last section, which is the vote of thanks for this evening, I'd just like to personally thank our two sign language interpreters, Santosh and Shivam, for the really tasking and beautiful interpretation that they've given us this evening. I'd just finally like to hand over the mic to Anshul, who would be doing the vote of thanks. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today.
Before I proceed with the vote of thanks, I would like to also invite you all to engage with the exhibition that is being set up in the adjoining room. And I would just briefly take a moment to kind of introduce the 7 organizations we have with us. First, we have the Enfold Proactive Health Trust that works to ensure that every child grows up in a safe, dignified environment where their rights are respected and upheld. We have Shruti, Gopika, Anandita, and they're very nicely set up stall as well as a couple of interactive things to do in sort of the exhibition space, so please interact with them. Along with that, we have the Queer Archive for Memory, Reflection and Activism, which is a physical multimedia archive dedicated to preserving the individual and collective narratives of the queer movement in India. Established as an independent project in 2020, Qamra is now housed at the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, where it serves as a vital resource for sustaining and expanding queer movements in India. We have Professor Siddharth, Meera, Gauri, and they've set up a bunch of nice screens as well as headphones. So please feel free to sit and listen, especially to all the stories of queer people and what the movement got and was spoken widely in India about. Then we have Culture, which is a creative and cultural enterprise. They seek to promote the access, understanding and experience of India's pluralistic cultural heritage. They were the ones who have curated the first Constitution Museum in India, housed at the O.P. Jindal Global University as well. Apart from that, we have Pasha sir, who has very nicely set up a stall with all the Kannada books that he's written, so please feel free to interact with Pasha sir's books and feel free to pick up and read them as well. Apart from that, we have the Dhwani Legal Trust, which is a not-for-profit organization committed to advancing accessible justice. Guided by the values of the Indian Constitution, the Trust provides legal aid, legal literacy and support to individuals and communities in need. Then we have Reclaim Constitution, led by Vinay, and it's a Bangalore-based citizens collective dedicated to nurturing a culture rooted in constitutional values. Through public engagement, education and dialogue, the collective works to strengthen democratic principles and civic participation. Vinay has set up sort of his place at the courtyard, so feel free to go through it, walk through it, read through it, as well as take home a copy of the preamble which you yourself get to print, so feel free to interact with that as well. And lastly, we have the Aravani Art Project, which is a trans woman and cis woman led art collective that creates spaces for trans communities to express, collaborate and participate in public art. This collective fosters well-being, awareness and social connection through murals and community-based art projects. I would kind of be very grateful if you could loosen your purse strings a bit and kind of buy a lot of their art prints, which is there, a lot of postcards, a lot of organizations selling very cute and very colorful memorabilia about the Indian Constitution as well. And lastly, the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy has also put a stall. And yeah, that's we are going to put up a stall, okay? And that has the Constitution catalogs as well that we launched. Feel free to pick a copy, go through it, and there's the QR code at the back to which you can scan. Apart from that, we have postcards and bookmarks along with the Nyaya children's book, which is a children coloring book for sort of people to take as well as look at it, and that's the step that we are going to take towards ensuring that the Constitution is not only for all of us but even for the cute children who have kind of accompanied us today. Before we close, I would just want to take a moment to say thank you. First, for all the people, to all the people who so generously shared their work. I think the four of us have kind of experienced that this is a project of labor and it could not have stood if it were not for the 300 organizations and individuals whom we spoke. Also a thank you for all the people who took out time to speak to us. We had scheduled meetings and we were constantly asking them as to let us know which library we can access or archives, and I'm sure we have troubled a lot of you multiple times today, so thank you to To our partner organizations, and a few of them which are here and which have set up sort of their exhibitions, thank you for walking alongside us, opening doors to communities and strengthening this work with your own experience and practice. To our project fellows, our interns who've been here, thank you for the countless hours of fieldwork that you've done on this project. I'm sure we kind of mobilized it, and at every time we were just panic calling every intern as to where did you find this piece of literature, now we need some more information on that. So thank you so much. A huge thank you to Azim Premji Foundation for their funding and their constant thoughtful support in making this work possible. I think their constant encouragement has kind of pushed us a lot on this project and have guided us to take a few more steps that we had originally not thought about. My heartfelt thanks also to Shreya, who's somewhere in the audience. Shreya, can we just have you here? Yes, Shreya is there, and she's the one. Let's give her a huge round of applause. She has designed all the catalogs for us, so all the beautiful cover pages that you saw was all Shreya, who kind of thought of having each state as well as certain distinct elements from that state, as well as kind of ensuring that we gave her a pretty kind of, difficult task. Like we gave her an Excel sheet and we were like, kind of make it interactive so that people won't be scared to look at an Excel sheet, and she did a very good job. So thank you so much, Shreya. We are grateful for our panelists as well for kind of helping us understand a bit more about how we can live the Constitution, as well as the audience for their kind of enriching questions as to where do we move next and how do we do that as well. To the dancers for, I'm sure I've not seen anything like this before, for embodying these constitutional ideals in movement and performance, and reminding that these are living, breathing principles, right? These are not just kind of values which are there on the book. And I think a huge thank you to Sabha and their entire team, right? From Dipti, who has helped us, to Vritti, who has catered the lovely food that we eat for snacks. It's for hosting us and kind of holding all the invisible logistical work which goes behind running this. To Malaika, our communications head, a huge round of applause. She's kind of ensured that all of you were here today by promoting us on social media, coming up with these nice posters and getting a lot of registrations through. So thank you so much. And for the sign language interpreters, let's give them a huge round of applause. It's not an easy task to be doing that for, constantly for 2 to 3 hours that we went around, and just a huge thank you. Thank you once again for being here and being a part of this journey. I'm sure that I've held you up, so there is a water station right at the back. Please feel free to have some water and then engage with our wonderful exhibition. Thank you so much and have a nice day.